Hey there, TJ Denzer here, Senior News Editor for Shacknews, coming at you with another game preview. This time, we had a chance to check out Rebellion's latest project, Atomfall. This is an open-world action-adventure game set in an alternate universe UK, in which the wind scale fires that took place in 1957, one of the worst nuclear incidents of all time. This is an alternate universe where that wind scale fire ruined United Kingdom countryside, changed that land, and it became a post-apocalypse. And we're kind of dropped in as kind of a survivor of all that, just trying to make our way through the world, just trying to get by any means necessary. To that end, for this preview that we played, we were kind of just dropped in blind. We didn't get too much of the story beyond that basic setup. We are set in the woods. There are a whole bunch of these cultists around called druids, and they are mean, and they will attack you on sight. We've learned of this woman named Mother Jago, who is kind of on the other side of the woods, and she will help us if we can get to her. It ends up being a thing where, like, we just have to get there by any means necessary. Have to get past these cultists, have to get through these woods, and we can kind of find and scrap and get supplies and resources along the way wherever we can pick things up. It's a first-person game. It's going to draw comparisons to Fallout because it's very inspired by that, but there's also a lot of rebellion in this game as far as like the developer's identity, as far as what they've done in the past. I'll remind you that Rebellion are the ones who created and continue to make games in the Sniper Elite series. And that kind of sandbox, go about it your own way, survive by any means necessary, don't bite off more than you can chew rhetoric is all here in Atomfall. The way we started out, we were given like a few different weapons. There was like a cricket bat, there was a hatchet, and then we had a single shot rifle, a pistol, and a shotgun that were all pretty rusty and in bad shape. The pistol was probably the most reliable, but all of them were in pretty crummy shape and like kind of a last ditch resort. I had to go through a cultist camp, and I got seen almost immediately, and they'll swarm you, and it's very hard to fight more than one person at a time in this game. It's not a good idea unless you have experience, unless you have the skills, because you can get skills in this game that strengthen your abilities, and catching them off guard is so important, because if they swarm you, they'll surround you, and they will beat you down, and then you'll have to reload your save. I had about like probably 2 or 3 times where I tried to fight these guys or get around them without fighting them before I could finally get my feet under me and actually start exploring. Once I got past that little hurdle, this game opens up. Like, the world that you travel through is broken and beautiful and just deeply, deeply well crafted. I really enjoyed wandering through the forest. I really enjoyed wandering through ruins and finding a few things. I found like this purple growth on a tree, and it turned out to be like nuclear hornets. They would like come out, they were like purple hornets that would come out of that hive and come out and attack me and swarm me until I ran the hell away. And you could shoot it, and I assume that if you see enemies near those things, you might be able to shoot those hives and cause a ruckus, or at least I hope so. In addition to the cultists who like were all over the woods, I was able to find a boathouse where there was a note in there about this lady that was looking for a bunker, and she ended up finding it and left coordinates on how to get there. It didn't give me like a waypoint to follow to go just like find her. It actually just told me about like the coordinates where it was at, and you have a map in this game that has the coordinates on it. So I actually had to kind of triangulate where I thought she might be by reading the notes that she left me and then comparing them to the map, which I also thought was a kind of cool and interesting way to go about that. I'm curious to see if they'll add more checkpoint systems to the map in later builds, but for what it was, I actually enjoyed the puzzle solving of figuring out where she was. And once I got to her, she kind of told me, like, she was completely different from the Mother Jago thing. She like told me that she was trying to get power restored to the bunker, and we talked a little bit about the situation and the cultists that are around. And then I went to Mother Jago, and she's like a whole different bag. She's this lady that's got a hat with chicken bones all over it, and she's an herbalist that tries to stay out of the cultist's way and trades with people who pass through. And unfortunately, they stole a book from her, and it has her herbalist recipes in it. So she wanted us to go get it back And the place she wanted us to go was a castle that was on the entirely other side of the forest from where her house was. So we had to trek back through the woods and get into this castle, which was heavily fortified with cultists, and also like radiated out the wazoo. I do also want to mention that along the way, I ended up going into a dark tunnel that like a road tunnel that went under a hill. And inside that road tunnel, there were creepy creatures that were like, I don't want to say zombies. I don't know if I even want to say ghouls. They had no faces except for mouths, and they would like, if they noticed you, they would get up. They were like sitting curled up with like fungus all around them. And if you approached them, they would get up and like spit blue blobs at you that would cause you to get infected. That's one thing I do want to mention in this game, is as far as like combat goes, as far as like survival goes, there's going to be a lot of collecting gear on the fly, crafting implements for yourself on the fly, grabbing anything you can grab like glass and cloth and screws and scrap metal, and assembling things that you need to survive. There are a lot of status effects in this game, such as bleeding and poison, and you can inflict those, but others can inflict those on you too. I used a hatchet on somebody and it inflicted a bleeding wound on them. Same with an arrow. I was able to hit someone with an arrow out of a bow and arrow, and it caused them to like bleed out as they tried to run away. Those creatures in that tunnel gave me an infection. It caused you to like start hearing voices in your ears as you were wandering the world until it went away, which was a creepy status affliction, I have to admit. Yeah, and the combat feels thick and weighty. Like, when you hit somebody with a cricket bat, they stumble backwards and try to get their senses back in underneath them and come at you again. And likewise, when you get overwhelmed, when you get hit, it jars your perception. It felt hefty. It felt intense when I got into a brawl with anyone. And I never tried to get into a brawl with more than one person unless I knew I could take them out with, like, firearms or other stuff. But we got to that castle, and these guys are, like, throwing equipment into a hole that's, like, leaking blue light and radiation. It was a maze getting through that castle. It's ancient British architecture mixed with fungus and like being overtaken by nature, and then these cultists that are like worshipping these radiated machines and this pit of radiation that's just like, it can't be very good for them. Either way, they had a book and we needed that book. We fought our way through the castle. You can use stealth along the way. There are skills in this game that I'll get to in a little bit. We kind of stealthed our way through the castle. We were able to do some takedowns on some folks. We were able to take others out with bow and arrow, and then we got into gunfights. We were able to find a decent rifle, like a decent enough rifle on a corpse somewhere in the depths of the castle, and that helped us with our long-range fighting. Bow and arrow was kind of a good way to go too, because you can kill silently with it. And I will say that like when you can do like stealth takedowns on people, but like killing them without certain perks makes a lot of noise, and other people will come after you as soon as you do that first takedown. It's a good way to get rid of one person, but you're kind of starting a big fight the moment if there are others nearby when you do it. Getting back to that skill thing, there aren't really level ups in this game. It's not an RPG like Fallout. It focuses more on those survival elements, but you can find books in the game that give you access to certain skills that you otherwise wouldn't be able to have. You start out with like a base set of skills that you can unlock, such as health, being able to throw items better. Like, you can throw most melee weapons in this game. If somebody is coming at you from a distance and you want to get started first, you can throw your hatchet at their face. And there's a skill tree that makes you better at throwing hatchets at people's faces, as well as other things, such as nail bombs, Molotovs, grenades, and other fun implements. I actually ended up finding a book along the way that told me about stealth, and it unlocked an entire stealth line of skills that I could unlock. One of them being quieter takedowns and quieter steps when it came to moving around crouched. There was also health, like constitution skills. There was firearms wielding, and a lot of them had skill lines that were not unlocked, that you're probably going to have to scour for some books to be able to unlock those, which is cool. So, bottom line, these guys like Fallout. It wears that on the sleeve, and Atomfall does have Fallout sensibilities about it. It's a very open world. It's very just wander out there and go see what you can find, and try to survive as you go. But it's also got a lot of those Rebellion sandbox qualities to it, those Rebellion play your way qualities to it. I got a good feel of like melee combat, I got a good feel of ranged combat, the skills are interesting, the navigation by clues on the map are interesting, the sense that like you need to be careful about what engagements you take because you're just one person and you can quickly get overwhelmed is interesting. Those are straight up things that are out of Sniper Elite, as far as like not biting off more than you can chew. And these vast sandbox maps that are just beautiful and filled with details to explore. It was only about an hour and a half that we got to play the game, so they said that by the end of this project, they're hoping to have a game that's more closer to 20 to 30 hours. And of course, that'll depend on what kind of side tasks and quests and little things that you go and find along the way. It's a dense game, for what I could see, and they said that you're going to be able to take different paths through it, which should make for some replayability. But for what we had, I was very satisfied to see how it played and what it felt like. It's a different flavor of post-apocalypse survivor that we haven't gotten out of Fallout, and we really haven't even gotten out of Stalker. It's kind of its own cool Rebellion thing, and I'm really excited to see more of it. And if you're excited to see more of it, then you should stick with Shacknews and check out our stuff. You can find us on shacknews.com. You can also head over to our YouTube channels at Shacknews, Shacknews Interviews, and Shacknews VODs. We have an interview with Rebellion that's going to be going up alongside this coverage, so be sure to check that out and hear straight from their mouths about some of the questions I had to ask about the development of this game and the inspirations they took. And until next time, this has been TJ Denzer, Senior News Editor for Shacknews. Y'all take care, and we'll see you soon.